to be perfectly honest with you, I feel that LG's hindrance for people buying them is maybe their software. I don't know. I've heard good. I mean, obviously their audio. It's always touted that it's one of the best, which I can't deny. I think I've had LG phones that have had pretty good audio quality, but I'm also not an audiophile, so for the most part, everything sounds pretty good. I'm sure by now you're probably aware that different brands take different approaches in delivering similar products. It doesn't matter if you're buying a new electric car, a pair of headphones, or a smartphone. Companies like Samsung and Huawei have been known for going overboard. That's very true. Flaunting features like 100 times space zoom, which is a lot of bullshit. Foldable displays, which is still having issues. 120 hertz refresh rates, battery draining, but apparently really good. I haven't had a chance to mess up with 120 hertz yet. And quote, phenomenal cosmic power. Okay, that last one was Jafar from Aladdin, but I think you get the point. These products are bold and and innovative, and no one's denying that. But all that bombast usually comes with a price, one that leaves your bank account looking like you've just been scammed by a Nigerian prince, which is one of the reasons I haven't purchased any of these phones in a while, because it's just too much money at this point. Too much money. At the opposite end of the spectrum, you get this, the LG V60. It's unassuming, it sports most of the specs the other big boys are playing with, and it has an odd case that sports a secondary display. And the best part is that it's up to 50% cheaper than some of its closest competitors. But the real question is it any good? Well, let's find out. LG's been a major playing in the smartphone space since the early days of Android. The company has had a handful of great hits, but it's never been as successful as Samsung. I've just never really seen them be consistent with their lineup. We just talked about how LG was killing their G lineup, right? So, back in the day, the LG G5, G6, and yeah, they stopped making the G series apparently after toying with the modular smartphone concept with the LG G5 back in 2016. Which did they even really make any modular components for that G5? I don't remember. I had a G5. I liked it because it had a removable battery, and actually, I thought at the time the software was pretty clean on it. It wasn't vanilla Android, but I could live with it. And I think the speakers were really good at the time. It also had an IR blaster. The build quality, though, was pretty questionable. Anyway, it says here the company's flagship devices have been relegated to the back burner as many of its competitors have stepped up. But the new LG V60 sets a different tone, delivering a phenomenal experience at just the right price, which could make consumers think twice before blindly handing over their cash to Samsung this year. How much? Are they going to tell me? Because I'd like to know now. I think a smartphone's price at this point, especially for me, is probably, if not the biggest factor, other than good camera, good performance, right? So those two are up there. When I say good performance, I also mean stock Android. I'm really having a hard time dealing with any other software that's not stock Android, but that's just me. So let's see here. Now I know that a smartphone's price isn't the most important factor that we all consider when buying a new device. If it was, the Galaxy Z Flip wouldn't exist, and we'd all be walking around with Motorola phones in our pockets. It's more about achieving the right balance, and the V60 does just that. How just does people need to proofread their shit. So how much does the V60 cost? Whatever. You can't buy it unlocked. So you can't buy it unlocked? That's already a huge red flag. I'm not going to buy a phone if I can't buy it unlocked. So it makes me just not even want to read the rest of this, but I will. But the cheapest price from a US service provider is $800 for the phone, or $900 if you want the phone and the dual screen case. Yeah, that's already pretty expensive. Compared to the new Galaxy S20 lineup, that's a steal since you still get the new Snapdragon 865 chipset, 5G, and camera setup that's worthy of the phone's flagship status. But I think you can get a S20 now for 800, right? Then they put that $200 discount on it, immediate discount. Or I just did an article yesterday that said Samsung said if you buy one of their S20 lineup phones now, they'll give you 50% cash back in up to 2 years. You can return it 2 years later. They'll still give you 50% of what you bought for it. That really smells of desperation, but I also don't want to shell out $1,000 today or anytime soon. That being said, since this phone is selling for 20% less than Samsung's S20 base model, LG did have to make a few compromises. The V60 comes with a lower resolution Full HD Plus display. It only has 8 gigs of RAM, and the triple camera on the back is compromised of a standard ultra wide and time of flight setup. That's right, the telephoto camera that seems to be so popular these days is missing. But while it's lacking in a few places, the V60 makes up for it by featuring a beefy 5,000 milliamp hour battery. That's a good plus. A quad mic system for incredible audio recording. I've heard good things always about their audio, and a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack with LG's unique quad DAC setup, which delivers an impeccable audio experience for a smartphone. Put all that together, and the LG V60 could actually be one of the best devices we've seen in 2020. That's questionable. I would need to see how this dual display really works. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of foldables just because they're still so new and they're still having issues, but I'm also trying to figure out what I would have a use case for a dual display. Like, what would I really use a dual display for? The only thing that I've ever seen that actually made any sense to me for dual display is, let's say I'm watching a stream like this one. If you had dual display and you were watching it on a phone, right, that had 2 displays, then you could watch the stream in full screen, and then you could have the other display show the live chat. So then you're still engaged in both ways. That's the only pro I've seen so far for it. Obviously, I'm not a huge multitasker. I'm not a businessman. I'm not walking around in a suit and tie that needs to look at 2 screens at once because I'm some hot shit. I still don't think anyone really needs to do that, but there's a use case for that kind of stuff. Maybe I don't know, architects, or I don't know, some fancy shit that needs blueprinting or something that needs a bigger screen. I don't know. Again, yeah, is 2 better than 1? I suppose so. But that is a lot to carry on you, I guess. Let's see here. Without it, the V60 can easily make it through a day and a half or even 2 days with about 10 hours of screen on time. That's crazy amount of screen on time. It's not the best battery life I've ever seen, but it's up there. As you can imagine, 10 hours of screen on time, and it's not the best battery life I've ever. I mean, I'm assuming it's still one of the best, right? As you can imagine, the dual display will eat into that a bit, but you'll easily be able to make it through a long workday with 7 to 8 hours of screen on time if you keep the second display powered on continuously. I mean, at this point, if I can only charge once a day and I can get 5 or 6 hours of screen on time, I'm pretty happy. I've switched over to my Pixel 4 as my daily again, just to, fuck around with it and see how it's held up over the last, 4 or 5 months. And yesterday, I think I barely got to 4 hours of screen on time on it. I was like, oh, yay. I got to 4 hours or close to 4 hours. Because I think there have been times I've had 3 hours of screen on time on that thing. So I don't know. I have to admit, the LG V60's camera specs, the phone seems to lag behind other 2020 flagship smartphones. For the launch camera, you get a 64 megapixel sensor that delivers 4:1 pixel binning for its 16 megapixel shots. And then you get a 13 megapixel ultra wide camera, something that LG pioneered back in the day. Other than that, there's a time of flight sensor for depth information, but LG's left out the ever popular telephoto camera, which Samsung, Oppo, and Huawei have been using as their main marketing feature. I don't think their telephoto thing is maybe it's their main marketing feature. I don't know. We all know that 100 times space zoom is a bunch of bullshit. So that being said, the V60 still offers 2 times hybrid zoom thanks to its 64 megapixel main sensor, which honestly turns out nearly as sharp as what we've seen from other phones with dedicated zoom cameras. Here's the thing. Most cameras most cameras today, most smartphone cameras today that have a good amount of sunlight or indoor lighting or lighting in general is going to have a good picture, mostly indistinguishable from other phones, unless again you're pixel peeping, but most people are just posting their shit on Instagram, and nobody is like going through it with a fine-tooth comb. But while the hardware LG is using is pretty simple, the image quality you get from them is superb. The images aren't as sharp as they should be, but the image processing is natural with great dynamic range, consistent white balance, and accurate color reproduction. The large sensor and pixels also deliver great low light shots. The only disappointment here is that LG has a long way to go before it catches up with the competition with its phone dedicated night mode setting. So that's another big thing for me too. I feel like at this point, with the prices of phones, especially how expensive they are, the big differentiators now is how well the camera performs at night. I feel like that is what separates a really good expensive smartphone from another. Um, Obviously there are other factors there. That's my measuring stick, right? If I'm going to be spending that much money on a phone, it's like, well, how good do these pictures take at night? How well do they take at night compared to another flagship phone? Because my iPhone 11 Pro has the best night shots I've seen in a while. Compared to the Pixel 4, the iPhone 11 Pro is the better camera at night. If you don't believe me, you can watch some of my videos. Again, they're my testing. I've done it my way. Everyone's case might be different there, or everyone's testing might be different. But I mean, um, it's been pretty consistent, and I've done a good number of tests. Maybe I should do another one. It's been a while since I've done one. Um, so let's see here. The results don't really add a lot of light when simply switching it on and moving the slider over tends to overexpose the scene and leave you with a blurrier shot. Well, that's not fun. Yeah, like this is garbage right here. I don't know how well you guys can see that. Let me see if I can zoom in a little more. Um, can't read any of these. No, like that's no. Um, that's nice. It's very highly sharpened. That's a good amount of lens flare, but so like, if you took this with a Pixel, right? What the Pixel does is they'll correct white balance also. So this will go from orange, like this dark, this warm color, to a more lighter, more natural looking color, which doesn't really that doesn't mean color reproduction, right? Because they're obviously changing that white balance. But for a lot of people, it's more appealing. For me too. Usually when I edit photos, because I don't really edit my smartphone shots, right? I edit my DSLR ones, but I'll always change that white balance to a more natural looking one. Yeah, this is all sorts of um blah. Like none of this is like this is all overexposed. Um, I mean, that's a little better, but there's just a good amount of flare. Obviously better when you get closer in. So this is a portrait shot, but look at that. Look at how much this is a thing that actually the Pixel 4, and I've done videos on that. The Pixel 4 has done a great job at making sure that they blur out the proper depth, or they give you a really a more realistic depth of field, right? So like you can see here, this guy's hat is fucked up. This girl's hat is fucked up. Her hair here is blurred here, and then this is sharp here and not blurred in. This obviously AI here needs to do a lot better job than what this is doing. And in my testing, at least, the Pixel 4 does this better than any other phone. And I think a lot of that has to do with its second camera. I know a lot of people are going to say, no, the Pixel just needs their one camera. It does everything. But compare the Pixel 3 to the Pixel 4 in portrait mode, and the Pixel 4 will destroy it. It will destroy it. And whatever this LG is doing is garbage. Don't shoot in portrait if that's how they're all going to turn out. That's not so bad. Uh, Adequate lighting. Yeah, this is really. I mean, look at I'm forgetting the word here, but it's just it's not it's like real hazy over here. And that sharpness is lost over here too. Decent. I mean, they're nothing special, right? I mean, they're sharp shots. Like this is a really nice one. I like this one a lot. I might be looking at it in a more artistic way, but this is a very nice shot. I don't. He's like, I'll zoom into this doorknob. No, but it looks good. I like it. That's great too. It's a great shot. Especially this is kind of indoor lighting. I mean, this is overexposed back here, but it's not bad. I mean, obviously we could push the shadows up a little more. No, these are good shots. These are actually really good indoor shots. The hair is a little fucked up over here, but it's not so bad. Why does this do better? Maybe it does better in just like indoor lighting, not night shots. Again, that's usually most phones, right? At this point, software and dual screen case. If I had to choose one feature that I'd completely swap out on the V60, it would be LG software. There you go. That's kind of what I was thinking was maybe the software just was not up to par and so again this is one person's review but I'm sure the sentiment is similar to a lot of other people. I'll be honest, the amount of bloatware, there we go again, you can't get it unlocked. It has bloatware. I don't know. It's 800 bucks still. $900 if you want that second screen that I don't know, whatever you need to use it for, but it has great audio quality. So again, your priorities might vary. Depends on what you want. I'll be honest, the amount of bloatware pre-installed on this phone is out of control. It's that bad that he has to call it out of control. And since all variants of the phone, at least here in the US, is sold through a service provider, there's no option for a clean unlocked build. That's an automatic no for me. Automatic no. You can tell me everything this phone has, and as soon as I find out that it's carrier locked and it has bloatware on it, no, thank you. Like I should just stop reading this review right now. Actually, I will because there's no that like it totally turns it off for me. Well, it's pretty much done here. And that's the thing too. People like to tell me just install whatever launcher. I think I'm just a very tried and true fan of vanilla of vanilla Android. By vanilla Android, I mean stock Android, and it's hard to change my thoughts on that. I just have a hard time using any other software that's not stock Android because I know it's not going to get the updates as soon as when Google puts theirs out. It's always been a sore spot for me. That's why I kind of stick with Pixels and before that Nexus phones and then the whole like Google Experience phones. So final thoughts when all is said and done, I have to say that LG V60 is a spectacular smartphone. Spectacular, except you have to buy it from a carrier. It has bloatware on it. When you uninstall that bloatware, there's still some shit on it that doesn't make it that great. The night shots aren't good. The portrait mode is finicky and doesn't really give you proper depth of field, but spectacular smartphone at $800, $900. It may be missing one. I'm obviously being very sarcastic. Again, these are my thoughts on it, right? I mean, you guys think whatever you want. I'm just reading you this article and I'm relaying how I feel about it. It may be missing one or two things that you can find on Samsung's Galaxy S20 lineup, but the combination that LG has presented delivers a mix of features found even on Samsung's most expensive S20 Ultra, while still coming up shy of the $1,000 Samsung is charging for its cheapest device. Is it perfect? Not by a long shot. But the V60 strikes just the right balance, delivering an experience that's perfect for the average consumer while also appealing to those who may want something out of the ordinary with the dual screen case. Obviously, I'm being very harsh on it. I am not a fan of buying a phone at a carrier. I feel like they degrade the phone for what it is. Like why do Android phones always have to go through that whole they have to go through that whole issue of uh getting the carrier to put bloatware on it. Apple doesn't have to do any of that. Apple's like, this is our phone, this is how we want to sell it, this is how you're going to sell it, done. Because money, right? I mean, obviously Apple makes a great product. And they get to say that, like, no, you don't fuck with our phone. You're just going to take this phone and you're going to sell it at the price we put it at and whatever. um Android doesn't get that benefit. They don't. I mean, even the Pixels don't get that benefit. A lot of these, I'm not saying for bloatware or whatever, but no, actually, I think some Pixels did. Anyway, regardless, what I'm saying is like these carriers, they like to, they know that Android phones don't sell the same way, so they want to get a little piece of that too by adding their own shit into it. So the LG V60 ThinQ, the good, amazing value, that's questionable. Incredible battery life. I'm with you there. Great cameras. Yeah, but I see, here's the thing is like I haven't tested the cameras personally, right? I just saw these pictures here and I gave you my opinion on them. But almost any phone during the day in good lighting is going to be a great camera. If you don't believe me, you can go check some of my old videos where I'm testing like the Moto G7 that uh, Mike let me borrow, and that was $180 phone. And I'm sure I can say that for a lot of other $100 phones in um, good lighting. Great camera. Great camera. You're probably not even gonna distinguish, or they're gonna be indistinguishable from a lot of other high-end phones. Again, the differentiator there is its night mode or its night shots. Um, the best flagship audio experience. I can't argue with that. Again, I haven't tested it personally, but I always hear great things. Um, the bad, lackluster software, heavy and bulky. Uh, the price, carrier only, can't get it factory unlocked. Not the best camera at night. You're missing some stuff there, guy.